Hi everyone, welcome to this short demonstration video. My name is Jeremy van Doorn and I've brought along Richard Garshagen, and Richard has brought along a big rack. So Richard, can you explain a little bit about what's in the rack?
Yes, Jeremy, absolutely. What I actually have here is a whole bunch of servers with me. I got lots of servers. I actually have a storage area network together. And across all these servers, we actually run the VMware Infrastructure 3 product suite.
Okay, so VMware Infrastructure 3, that sounds impressive. Can you explain a little bit on how I can use it?
Yes, so VMware Infrastructure 3 is really designed to run production server environments. So it really has a lot of functionality built in for high availability, disaster recovery, and really making sure that you can run optimum your production server environments and of course have the benefit of consolidation. So in my case here, I'm running a lot of virtual machines on just a few physical servers.
Okay, so you're running a lot of virtual machines on just these couple of physical servers. Can you show this to me?
Yes, absolutely what I can do. What I can actually do here is I can log into my VMware Virtual Center Infrastructure client. This is a Windows 32-bit piece of software that I actually have installed on my PC here. And let me log in here as the administrator and with my password. And what you actually will get to see here is actually an overview of all my physical hosts and all my virtual machines. And one of the things that you actually will notice is that you can see here that actually my virtual machines are not tied to my physical hosts.
Okay, so we're running all these different virtual machines, but can they also run different operating systems?
Yes, so actually you can run all kinds of different operating systems actually on our environment here. Let me actually show you. I actually have here a few virtual machines. As you can see here, I actually have on my database servers, I have a Solaris virtual machine running. And so let me actually click here on remote console. And here you go. You can actually see that I have a up and running Solaris virtual machine running as my database server. I also have here a terminal server here. Let me see, remote console. This is actually a Windows 2003 terminal server that I'm running. So I can really run any kind of operating system, as long as it's an x86 operating system, across all my virtual machines on just these few physical servers.
Okay, so this looks really nice, but say I have a new project and for instance I need a new web server. Would you be able to provision a new web server for me?
That's actually very easy. I can actually very easily create a new virtual machine for you. Let me actually show you an example. I mean, you say you want a web server. I actually can go here to my list of libraries of templates, and I actually can just create a new virtual machine for you straight on the fly. So I actually have here already a pre-made template of a web server, and I can just say here, create new virtual machine from this template, and I'll make a new web server. So I'll call it, Jeremy's web server, and I'll make sure it gets stored in the right resource pool. I'll make sure it's stored in the right storage environment. I'll make sure that all the other settings are properly configured. And one of the things I have to do is I have to make sure it is, of course, properly customized as well for your needs. So I'll select the customization template that I actually have here for web servers, and I'll fill in it as, Jeremy Jer Web 01. There we go. And actually what it will now do is actually we'll start creating this web server for you straight on the fly.
Okay, so I can see this task running, but can you explain what happens underneath?
Yeah, so underneath actually what we're doing here is that we're using the benefits of a virtual machine. So one of the key benefits of a virtual machine is that a virtual machine is nothing more than just a file instead of actually a physical piece of metal. So by being just encapsulated in a file, if I need a new one, I can actually just copy this file over and I'll get a new virtual machine. Another benefit of a virtual machine is that it is completely hardware independent. That means that I can set one virtual machine aside and I can deploy that new virtual machine from that file to any other physical server that I buy. Independently, if that's the same box or a different box of a different brand or a different model, it does not matter because a virtual machine is always the same and I can run it on any of my physical servers.
Okay, so I can see this virtual machine is still being created, but you created it for me and I want to be able to manage it. Can you show me how that works?
Yeah, that's actually not a problem at all. One of the great benefits of VMware Infrastructure 3 is that we actually have scale-out management. It allows me actually to empower you to manage just your own environment without actually me having to worry that you can screw anything else up. So what I actually can do here is I can actually go to my web servers and I can actually add permission here for you, Jeremy. Let me actually select Jeremy, and I'll make you the virtual machine administrator. So now that it is set up, we can actually go to your desktop environment and see how you now actually can just manage your own environment. On your desktop here, you can actually, you have an icon there, VMware Infrastructure 3 Client, so if you can click on that, and you can actually log in as your own username with your own password.
Okay.
And what you get to see is your own virtual machines now.
Okay, so I can see my virtual machines, but I can't actually see the physical hardware that's in the environment. So I'm assuming that you're maintaining this physical environment. So what happens if you do need to do maintenance on my physical server?
That's actually not a problem. I mean, even though your virtual machine is running on my physical server, your virtual machine will not notice anything because we actually have a technology in place, something called VMware vMotion. And VMware vMotion allows me actually to move a virtual machine while it is running from one physical server to another physical server.
Okay, so you're moving my virtual machine while it's running. Won't I experience any downtime?
Not at all. I mean, I can move a virtual machine and you will not even notice it. Let me actually show you an example here. Let me just find a virtual machine that I have here. Let's take an example. Here I have my terminal server, and I see this terminal server is 192.168.1.102. So if I can ask you to actually make a connection to this server. So if you can make a connection to the terminal server using RDP, and in that screen actually that you get there, so if you can log in as administrator and with password VMware, you actually get to see some applications. So you can open up your task manager, so we just see what's going on in this virtual machine. I have an application there called CPU Busy, and what CPU Busy actually will do is it will stress out this virtual machine just to prove to you that I can actually move any kind of virtual machine independently of what it is doing. So even though that this virtual machine is going to completely stress out the CPU, I will still be able to move this virtual machine from one server to another server without you noticing this. And finally, but not least, I even have Tetris running here, so you can actually play a nice game of Tetris. And what I actually will do here in my interface, I'll find the virtual machine here, there we go, the terminal server, and right now I see it is running on server ESX1. And what I can do is I can just right mouse click on it, and I can say let's migrate, and let's move it to, for instance, to server 2. So I'll move it here to server 2. I'll choose to migrate it. I want to keep it as the terminal server in the same resource pool. And there we go, finish. And what actually when I'll do is it will actually move that virtual machine from one server to another server while actually your session is running. You're playing your Tetris game, you see my task running, and that machine is actually being moved right now while you're not noticing a single thing.
Okay, so I can see this task is running, but do I need the exact same hardware from server 1 to server 2 to be able to do this?
No, not at all actually. I mean, there is one limitation to vMotion is that you cannot move a virtual machine from an Intel processor to an AMD processor or the other way around. So you actually can only move a virtual machine from Intel to Intel or AMD to AMD. But besides that, you can take any application and actually move it from one physical server to another physical server.
Okay, super. I'm still working, but the task is gone on your screen. So does this mean that my vMotion...
It actually moved. Here, if I actually go in my screen here, I'll look at the terminal server, and there you go. As you can see, it is right now actually running on server ESX2. So it actually jumped a physical server while you're still playing your game of Tetris. You didn't lose a single ping, and everything is actually just moved from one box to another box.
Okay, so I can see we're running this CPU Busy program, and it's totally stressing out my virtual machine. So does this have a negative influence to the rest of my virtual machines? Or is there something that you can do to prevent that?
Yeah, actually we can. I mean, VMware Infrastructure 3, as I said, was designed for production server environments. Now I would say that one of the most important things, if you want to run production servers, is that at least you can control all the resource consumption of all your virtual machines. So even though that in this example the virtual machine is actually using 100% CPU, I can actually completely control all the resource consumptions of my entire environment. So this is actually something that we can do with a concept called resource pools. With resource pools, I can really control logically now how much resources all my virtual machines can use. So I can really make sure that all my production servers get the right amount of CPU that I want them to have, and that, for instance, my test and development servers can actually not steal all those resources away. It also allows me to much better control the life cycle of how an application is being used in my